Good morning, everybody. And what a show I have for you guys today. Brazil storming the crapper hole. Also, the feds are about to ban gas stoves based on an asthma study. And we're going to talk about DNA changing Hydra squid, as well as the restaurant industry now starting to shame beef when they give it to you in the restaurant. Actually shaming you about it. Wow. Now, today's show is very important. I'm going to provide you guys actionable intelligence. And you will be able to share this video because these are things that we've been tracking and warning about that are now coming to pass. For all of you that have been following the channel, you've heard us talk about the eventual extinction of gas stoves and that it was right on the horizon. You've heard us talk about them taking away our ability to keep warm in the winter. The Bible says, let not your flight take place in the winter. Why do you think that scripture is in the Bible? Could it have to do with things getting really cold and you not having the right or the ability to keep yourself warm? We're also going to look at what happened in 2014 right under our noses. Huge sweeping federal legislation on wood burning stoves. Now, I hadn't realized this until I looked back in time, but that happened. Now, we've been warning about this, that they want to electrify the world. They want you to pay money outside of natural resources like wood. They want you to pay money, which then forces you into their economic system, right? Because how are you gonna survive if you don't make money to pay them for your electricity? You guys, this is huge. This is huge. And it's not just because some of us like to cook on gas stoves instead of electric. It goes far deeper than that. We'll get into some of the elements of that as well. Now, let's start with our first story today. Can anybody say deja vu? Well, as we speak, the people of Brazil, this was on the 9th, yesterday. Remember, we just passed the anniversary of the crapper hole on the 6th. So we have a 6 and a 9. Oh, how about that? The yin and the yang. But look at this. This is deja vu. Let's scroll this up here. Look at the people of Brazil. This is their crapper hole building. And it looks like a carbon copy of what happened at our crapper hole building. Stormed in just like, look at this, the seats of Congress or whatever, waving the flags, taking selfies. This is weird. Look at this guy. I was in fear for my life. Oh, it was an attack. They show the inside government offices. Wow. Now, many of you have probably already heard about this event, but we are going to break this down a little bit further because there's something very important that you need to know. What is this about? Well, I believe that they're using these riots to crack down on the last free thought and rights that we have left. Here are some of the flags that people were holding up at the crapper hole here in America. These are Trump supporter flags. And as you can see, it says, unleash the Kraken. The Kraken is the Hydra. This has never been about patriots making change by marching on the crapper hole. That's not what this was ever about. That's what they wanted us to think it was about. You think it's an accident that the Kraken COVID variant came out just days before this new Kraken event in Brazil? This is spiritual warfare. Look at this. I didn't notice this. As above, so below. Look at the way these CRAPPERHOLE buildings are constructed in Brazil. We're going to have to take a look at this in Google Earth. Probably do that after the show. You have a bowl right side up and then a bowl upside down, is what it appears from looking at this. Wow. Now, we need to begin to understand that these events are Hegelian honey traps, whose sole intent is to squash any remnants of rebellion, rebellious ideologies, any groups that are organizing, even in their mind, against the government, because they want to control your mind. Look, if Trump really supported these people, his supporters, you know, the people that got him elected, he would have established, or he would have at least backed some kind of legal defense fund, right? I mean, to me, this is obvious. He would have funded or at least backed some kind of legal defense fund. But instead, he's been noticeably silent on all of this, hasn't he? In fact, just after the event of the CRAPPERHOLE here in America, he even made comments that the rule of law should prevail against anybody who was deemed violent, which now has come to include anybody who walked through the front door or shoved somebody while holding a dangerous object. So all of this is orchestrated, pushed by puppet provocateurs who are being paid by the very people that they claim to be against to artificially destabilize governments, so that anybody who crosses the line can be locked up. You guys, force isn't what makes change against a much stronger ideology. These people control the programming, don't they? You're not going to accomplish anything with force. Thought is what makes change. Thought followed by actions against the ideology. And nothing changes until we reject the ideology with our actions. Right? Like rejecting consumerism. Rejecting their unholidays. Right? They're unholidays because they're unholy. Rejecting debt, which enslaves us. We have to reject their materialism and standing up for carnal, God-given rights. Like being able to use a gas stove. Or being able to eat beef without being shamed for it. And we should be demanding these rights when the time comes, not with violence, but with deliberate action. And this is why this homesteading thing was so important. I've been trying to get through to some people. But it's like half the people are reject it out of hand. I could never achieve that. I don't want to do that. Where's the faith? Homesteading is the best way you can exercise your rights. It's almost like owning a gun. It's not about having a gun. It's about your right to own a gun, to protect yourself and your family from wild animals, which we're seeing an uptick in recently. Just read a story of Baton Rouge. A girl was attacked by a pit bull. Family said it never happened before. Or wait, no, that was a different story. But this is happening with more frequency. What happens to a muscle when you don't exercise it? It goes away. And this very country was founded on the concept of homesteading. Buying a piece of land that is very low in cost, with very, very low taxes, and building something that is apart from any grid. If you haven't noticed by now, this grid thing is the central, most important topic going on right now. Amidst all of the chaos and drama and all the distractions, you want to talk about distractions. Distractions are, oh, Trump's a racist. Oh, the liberals are communists. Oh, those are the distractions. Because those people are all on the same side at the top, pushing along this agenda to create a grid that you will be forced to be on and then give up 50% more of your rights. This is the central, most important issue. And if we don't exercise this right now, it's going to be gone. It's going to be gone. Because when we go along with the flow of the prepackaged American dream that they present to us, then we become part of the status quo, and that enables the system, doesn't it? And this is what I love so much about our Savior Jesus. He showed us how to live with hardly any belongings, no attachments to the beast. I can imagine that Jesus probably had some land in his land where he was born that would belong to his family, that they farmed. He never got to go back to that land because he was crucified, of course, but he went on the road. But he always knew he could come back and be with his sheep and use his carpentry skills to build his homestead. What did Noah do? He built a homestead, albeit was floating on water, but that's what he did with all his animals. We have to start listening to what the Bible says. Job had the same thing. He had a homestead with animals and his homes. It was all taken from him, but then God gave it back to him, because that is the way we're supposed to be living, not under some tyrant making dumb rules like you can't build a fire in your fireplace. Are you kidding me? This is the single most important issue. And I hope every single one of you is convicted right now and shares this video so that we can get the word out, because we've been warning about this. Now, I'll cover what the feds are up to at the end of the show. I have the story pulled up. It just broke. They are literally considering banning gas stoves based on this asthma study. And I am worked up today. I'm sorry, but I am. Because sometimes we have to ring the bell, don't we? Now, the only way people are going to hear about this is through channels like this, because headlines like this are going to get buried under all the drama, right? Everyone pointing fingers at Trump or pointing fingers at the liberals, and them in their dumb fights that mean absolutely nothing. It's just drama. And then these stories get buried. So let's get into what is going on here in Brazil. And then we'll get into the Kraken variant. Bolsonaro supporters storm Brazil's CRAPPERHOLE. Dramatic scenes from the CRAPPERHOLE where thousands stormed the country's seats of government on Sunday. Supporters of the former president smashed their way into the Supreme Court, Congress, and the presidential palace. This is a carbon copy of what happened here in America. Crowds of people wrapped in Brazilian flags were seen breaking windows and flooding parts of Congress with a sprinkler system. One official showed the extent of the damage done to his office in presidential palace. Scenes were a grim echo of the attack on the U.S. CRAPPERHOLE 2 years ago by fans of former President Ronald Dump. Many of the Bolsonaro supporters dispute the results of the election. It's the carbon copy, you guys. It's the Gemini Janus counterpart of what the psyop that just descended on America 2 years ago. It's literally a carbon copy. Now, if I were to read down through this, there would probably be even more synchronicities. Wouldn't there? Now let's get into this Kraken variant. But before we do, understand that the Kraken is essentially a Hydra. Here's the Wikipedia page for Kraken. Now, I thought that this clip from season 3 of the TV series Servant was appropriate for this portion of the show. Why? Because this is a drawing of the arms of the Kraken sitting on a plate. calamari. And what this represents in the TV series is the symbol of the cult, the nanny's cult, because this is her book she's drawing in, and the mother of the family is snooping into her journal and finds this picture of the Kraken. Now, we've been on the trail of the Hydra for some time, haven't we? And I'm going to go ahead and put a link to the Hydra playlist that I put together on this channel. Look at this. Some severed fingers, rings, all this crazy stuff going on in this series. I don't know about this series. I got to the end of season 3, and this woman ends up getting thrown down off of a railing. Now, the next season is supposed to start in a few days. But it's just a weird series about a cult and a family and a nanny. Weird. Anyway, let's get into this Kraken variant. But before we do, understand that in a completely unrelated 2020 discovery, tongue-in-cheek, right before COVID took hold of America, they realized that squid are the only animal in the entire genome that can change their DNA. I'll let this guy explain it to you.
Weakness continues all the way to the DNA level. They have a completely wild way of adapting that changes to their genome. They edit their genetic instructions on the fly. Understand why that's so weird? It helps to know how cells make the proteins they need, and then for all out of that compartment. And that is where messenger or mRNA comes in. To make something from a gene.
Are you kidding me? Squid can change their DNA. In fact, they're one of the only creatures that can change up to 60% of their DNA.
Octopuses and their relatives are known for their intellect. Do a quick YouTube search and you will find videos of them opening jars, escaping from a
unclean animals acting with human intelligence. Could some of these creatures be possessed by spirits?
Aquariums, even taking photographs. And across the board, these species have very complex nervous systems, including brain lobes dedicated that make and stimulate connections in their brains. And most occur in the axons of neurons.
So I'm not going to play too much of this guy's thanks. Could be copyright. But understand that this discovery was released in Science on March 24th. You guys, the lockdowns, well, the first lockdown, declared state of emergency, was on Friday the 13th of March of 2020. So this was right in the middle of the beginning of all this. Started seeing cases in like late February after the Super Bowl, remember? And we already knew what was going on in China. And then Trump declared the state of emergency. It's completely unrelated, right? Tongue-in-cheek. I have to say that. So, the Kraken is the beast coming up out of the sea. It's the power structure's blunt instrument. And their Hydra symbolism is everywhere. Let's get into this new variant called literally the Kraken. Kraken subvariant shows VidCo continuing to evolve. We need another Smack the Nation. Public Health Agency of Canada said last week it's too early to tell if Omicron is spreading in Canada. Beyond scattered cases popping up, there's still cause for concern. Public should be prepared for engaging in health measures. And the new variant is an indication that not only is VidCo-19 continuing to evolve, it's highlighting the need for vaccine equity globally to prevent more variants from emerging. XBB 1.5 is a subvariant of Omicron, nicknamed Kraken. Wow. The symbolism is everywhere. Now, how does this segue into the future? Well, already they are staging the Trump comeback. Remember, there's always got to be an underdog. Even narcissists have to pretend like they're, fighting against all odds. All of the investigations and, him on the verge of being thrown in jail, which I already told you he'll never ever go to jail. I could say that with certainty because they still have to use him. Now, here's the comeback. The Hill saying 65% of Republicans say loyalty to Trump is important. This is how they begin to trickle back into your subconscious, make it look like he came back from against all odds, and then people will rally to his support. Now let's get into some other stories today. Remember when I told you that the entire world would start to look the same, and that this would be an indicator of the future world order? Globalism. And remember just yesterday, I told you, I wonder what if Iran has the same restaurants and businesses and stuff like that as America. So I did a Google search. Lo and behold, this 2015 story, interestingly released on 11/9, which is 9/11 backwards, shows that in Iran, their restaurants are knockoffs, literal copies of American ones. Iranian restaurants are bizarrely similar to their American counterparts, and now KFC is trying to shut one down. In Iran, there are many imitations of popular restaurant chains. We're trying to get as close as we can to the McDonald's experience. The owner of a restaurant called McDonald's told The Times, no genuine American food chain has an outlet in Iran, mainly because of the government's hostility and sanctions that make such businesses impossible. Okay, so if that was the case, why would they allow a knockoff version of it? Do you see what I'm saying? Pseudo-American chains in Iran include Pizza Hut instead of Pizza Hut, Burger House instead of Burger King, and KFC, Kabuki Fried Chicken. But now the real KFC is suing its Iranian knockoffs. Good luck, and what court is going to oversee that? So this is just an example. If Iran was our mortal enemy and Iran hated the U.S. as much as we say we hate them, why would they allow even a knockoff version of American stuff? I mean, it's so obvious. It's even got the same name in the title. So, this is what's going on, you guys. Now, what else do we have in the headlines here? Hopefully your eyes are starting to open. You're starting to realize that all wars are fake, sacrificial events to cull humanity's energy and blood. But wait. Guess what? These people are gods. I'm just kidding, of course. But according to UN chapter 3, verse 5 of the Unholy Climate Bible, science was able to unpart the blue sea. I'm not making this up. Science is now claiming that the ozone threat has been averted. Why? Because you listened to them and allowed them to destroy your Aquanet hairspray, thus bringing us into the age of less puffy bangs, which the world is better off for anyway, because puffy bangs look funny. I mean, seriously? Let's read this. Try not to pee ourselves laughing. UN says ozone layer is slowly healing. Wow, so they're like the Messiah. They can heal the ozone layer. The UN has healed the hole. And they're saying by 2066, it will be completely healed. They unparted the blue sea. Okay, so let's be serious now. Earth's protective ozone layer is slowly but noticeably healing at a pace that would fully mend the hole over Antarctica in about 43 years. A once every 4-year scientific assessment found recovery in progress. I can't even keep reading this. Unbelievable. Now, let me check in with you guys. you didn't pee yourself as I read that story, because it was kind of funny. And then we're going to get into some other stuff. I promised to dig into these wood burning stoves a little bit, which is a really big deal, you guys, because gradually the EPA has been crouching upon your basic human right to keep yourself warm outside of an electric bill. Now, here's what I was shocked to find out. That back in 2014, let's go back to the story here. The EPA passed sweeping legislation to limit the types of wood-burning stoves that you can have. Some states took this ruling a step further and they outright banned wood-burning stoves. California was one of them. And I shared that story with you guys, that my mother couldn't even freaking build a fire in a fireplace, and no new construction was allowed to have a fireplace in California. Let's read this. It seems that even wood isn't green or renewable enough anymore. The EPA has recently banned the production and sale of 80% of Americans' current wood-burning stoves. Now understand, at some point I want to buy a wood-burning stove. These things are like $1,000 now for a hunk of metal that you put wood in. Why do you think that is? Well, it's because the cost is artificially inflated so that so that you think twice about putting one in. The oldest heating method known to mankind and the mainstay of rural homes and many of our nation's poorest residents. The agency's stringent one-size-fits-all rules apply equally to heavily air-polluted cities and far cleaner, plus typically colder off-grid wilderness areas such as large regions of Alaska and the American West. While EPA's most recent regulations aren't altogether new, their impacts will nonetheless be severe. Whereas restrictions had previously banned wood-burning stoves that didn't limit fine airborne particulate emission to 15 micrograms per cubic meter of air, the change will impose a maximum 12 microgram limit. To put this amount in context, the EPA estimates that secondhand tobacco smoke in a closed car can expose a person to 3,000 to 4,000 micrograms of particulates per cubic meter. So, the inference here is, oh, it's okay to puff it up, kill yourself with tobacco, and release 1,000 times, 500 times the amount of particulates in the air. That's okay. But when you want a fire to keep yourself warm, you're allowed 1/500th of that amount to come out of your chimney. Unbelievable. Most wood stoves that warm cabin and home residents from coast to coast can't meet that standard. Older stoves that cannot be traded in for updated types, but instead must be rendered inoperable, destroyed, and recycled as scrap metal. Now imagine the billions of dollars that people have spent in these stoves that are now had gone obsolete back in 2014. Now, according to this, they didn't make you like take out your wood stove, which is why a lot of you still have your wood stove. But when you go to sell your house, you'll have to like remove that. Local governments in some states have gone even further than the EPA, not only banning the sale of non-compliant stoves, but even their use as fireplaces. As a result, owners face fines for infractions. Puget Sound, Washington is one such location. Montreal, Canada proposes to eliminate all fireplaces within its city limits. So, back then, seven states' attorney generals sued the agency to crack down on wood-burning heaters as well. Oh, so they sued them not because they were overstepping their bounds, but they feel like they didn't do enough. This is unbelievable. Connecticut, Maryland, Massachusetts, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, all predominantly Democrat states, claiming that EPA's new regulations didn't go far enough to decrease particle pollution levels. Wow. So, this was back in 2014. Now, what else is going on? Well, this is the Alliance for Green Heat. Look at this. Here's a map. Now, this is from the perspective of people who trust their utility companies and governments enough to give up their basic human right to light a fire. And so what they did here is they graded every state based on how big of a fire you shouldn't be allowed to make. So in backwards world, a poor grade here means lots and lots of freedom to build whatever fire you want. So, look at this. Florida gets a D because they allow you to build a fire and keep warm. Here's Arkansas, C-. This is a state you want to live in if you want a right to keep warm and build a fire. All of the worst grades here are the places you want to live. The places with the best grades are the places you don't want to live in. Look at this. Alaska. I'm disappointed in Alaska. They got a B-. The climate people love Alaska. They love Oregon, Washington, California. Look at this. Idaho. This is supposed to be a free state. Now you're seeing the agenda. It doesn't matter if these states are Republican or Democrat. The Republicans are just as bad. They're going along with all this garbage. There's, what is this, Montana? Montana gets a B. Not good. Montana is cold. It should be down here with these southern states, allowing you to build a big fire to keep warm in the winter. So, the Alliance for Green Heat can shove their green heat where the sun doesn't shine. Sorry, guys, this is kind of ludicrous. This just burns me up. Pun intended. Now, if you think there isn't an attack on your right for free energy, see, the real free energy we should be fighting for is the free energy that's growing all around us, trees that fall on the ground that God intended for us to put in a fire and burn. How do you think man stayed warm for the first 6,000 years? Breaking news. Exactly what we said was going to happen is now happening. The feds are now considering a ban on gas stoves. A study released last week found gas stoves were the cause of almost 13% of childhood asthma in the U.S. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission is considering a federal ban on gas stoves in response to a growing body of scientific research that has linked them to a variety of health problems. Okay, so, common sense, right? Remember before children had asthma, like in the 70s and 80s when I grew up, I didn't know one friend who had an inhaler. Yet all of those friends that I grew up with had gas stoves. And nobody had asthma. I mean, is anybody out there understanding this? Other than all the people that come to this channel? How is it that we had gas stoves all the way into it started in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and nobody had asthma, and now all of a sudden the gas stoves are causing asthma magically? Now, who's going to stop this agenda? Are there any elected officials who can stop this? Is any of this even constitutional? You guys, we are on track to see the extinction of natural gas and beef in America. We'll talk about that in a minute, within the next few years. Is any Republican governor or president or Congress going to stop this? I think you all know the answer to that. And this is why we're raising awareness on this show today. These issues that we're talking about today haven't even made it to the debate table in politics yet, because everybody's too busy calling Trump a racist or liberals communists. Distracted, aren't we? Completely distracted into the right-left paradigm as our basic human rights are being taken away right underneath our noses. Stripped away. You will literally no longer have the right to build your own fire to keep warm or to have basic, real, unadulterated protein to maintain your health. And this is becoming serious. Let's keep reading about this federal ban on gas stoves. This is a hidden hazard, says Richard Trumpka Jr. You think that's an accident that his name's Trumpka? Told Bloomberg in an interview, any option is on the table. Oh yeah, it's easy for you just to say that, right? What about the people who just bought a gas stove? They spent $1,000 on a gas stove. Are you going to write them a check? Of course not. Products that can't be made safe can be banned. The agency will begin public comment sessions this winter as it begins weighing restrictions on emissions from gas stoves that are found to be harmful to human health. So, this public comment session is definitely something you want to show up to. Everybody in this channel, if you get access to a public comment session, you should show up, myself included, peacefully, not yelling a bunch of obscenities, peacefully to make your case. And here's what I would say. I would tell them, here will be my argument. I would make a sign. I'm going to be really specific here. I would make a sign that says, we made it all the way through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s with no asthma epidemic growing up on gas stoves. What changed? That would be like the sign that I would make. Last week, a study in a peer-reviewed International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health concluded that gas stoves, which are used in roughly 40% of U.S. homes, 40%, almost half the homes in America have gas stoves, were responsible for 12.7% of childhood asthma cases in the country. In all, the study found gas stoves were responsible for giving asthma to 650,000 children in the U.S., except for before the 1980s when no children had asthma and a lot of families still used gas stoves. I mean, yeah. When the gas stove is turned on, when it's burning at that hot temperature, it releases a number of air pollutants. Wow. This is something to stand up for, you guys. Peacefully, of course. Peacefully. Now, I have my beliefs about what really caused asthma, starting in like the 80s and 90s, but I can't tell you what that belief is, because we won't have a YouTube channel if I start talking about that. So, you can look up your own research. You can actually go to the CDC website, and they'll admit that certain things cause asthma, albeit very, 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 very rarely. They actually admit to it. So, look at this. Consumers order less beef when fast food restaurants disclose climate change impact. So, now you go to fast food and they beef shame you. This is beef shaming. I'm going to go out and buy me a burger right now. Actually, no, I won't, but now, if you want to laugh, again, careful, because you're not going to want to pee your pants. I left a comment down here. Let's see if I could find it. Because I was upset. Righteous indignation. It's okay to be righteously indignant, isn't it? Let's try to find my comment down here. It's under KC. Let's see if we can find it here. Where are you? This guy Abaddon, weird. Okay, we're getting close, I think. KC. A lot of people upset about this. When you go to a restaurant, you don't want to be beef shamed. This is what I said. When they disclose climate change impact to me, I order twice as much and take home what I don't eat. I got 6 thumbs up and 2 thumbs down. And then here's the provocateurs. Why do you take it home? That's recycling, you liberal. So they come in to try to get you to fight with them and then get your post removed. I said liberal? LOL? Really? No. It's about standing up for your rights. Because if you don't exercise your muscles, they'll atrophy and go away. Then you'll be living in a world that you hate, where you're told when you can go to the bathroom, when you can make a hamburger, when you can cook something on your stove, when you can make a fire in your fireplace. Now, let's go back into the chat here. Sorry, guys. I know it was kind of an everything show today, but this is all very, very important. Now, tomorrow, we're going to examine California's drought problem. As we speak, billions of gallons of water are flowing through the Central Valley and out to the sea. What can be done? Well, as we speak, billions of gallons are being pumped uphill, thousands of feet into the air, to send water to Los Angeles. And the question is could we do the same thing during these years of heavy rainfall? Could we pump the wasted water back up into the reservoirs? Now, as many of you don't know, I was accepted into Cal Poly San Luis Obispo into the civil engineering program out of high school. I was in the civil engineering program for 1 year. I'll tell you a little bit more about that tomorrow, but I do have knowledge of this stuff and how to fix basic problems. It's obvious to me what should be happening. Every 5 years, California gets a bunch of rain. Problem is, there's nowhere to put it. The reservoirs go empty, and then it's a drought for 4 or 5 years. So we're going to talk about all that tomorrow, some solutions. We're going to look in Google Earth. We're going to look at these huge pumping stations that are already in California, but they're not filling reservoirs back up. They're doing something else. So the technology's there, but nobody wants to talk about it or do it. And we're going to talk about why that is. Now let's go into the chat here. Welcome, everybody. Now, I know a lot of people don't care about California, but this is an important show for tomorrow because it's the shape of things to come. It's how the controllers run all governments. It's not for the people. They do just enough to get by, just enough to not have a rebellion on their hands. But they're not truly trying to solve problems. Easy problems to solve. Instead, they want to focus on California's electric car industry, telling you when to start a fire. All right, let's go in here. Our streets flood multiple times a year. We never get a camera crew in our neighborhood. Nope. Underground tanks to store all the rainwater. Well, we'll talk about this tomorrow, but California has 1,300 reservoirs all along the foothills. A lot of them go empty or don't have enough water, or they sit at a third capacity. There's plenty of space to store the water. It's just it's feast or famine. So, oh, someone's from Alaska. Okay, so why does Alaska have a lot of rules on burning wood? That is my question, I guess, because according to the environmentalists, they love Alaska and the rules that they have there. They got a B in terms of controlling emissions. Now, I do watch a couple of like shows of people out in the wilderness in Alaska, and every time this guy is out in the wilderness, he's like, I can't build a fire right now. It's literally cold outside. He's like, oh, that's a fire ban day. No fire for us today. No fire for us today. And he's like out literally in the middle of nowhere, and he's not allowed to build a fire. And I thought that that was peculiar. So maybe that has something to do with it. But interesting to hear your story in Alaska of what's going on with wood burning fireplaces and fire control. All right, what's going on here? Wreck-It Ralph decode, please. Okay, I have gas, but it's not coming from the stove, says Isaac. Protests do nothing. Yes, protests do nothing, but I think in this case, this giving our feedback, we have to give our feedback, you guys. I'm giving the feedback here to hopefully 20,000 people see this video. But it needs to go beyond this. So we need to, give your feedback at least peacefully and make that very solid argument. Hopefully the argument makes it onto the national news. People can wake up and go, wait a minute, there was no asthma before, and a lot of people had wood burning or gas stoves. What the heck? How are you going to explain that? Blade Runner, yeah, we decoded Blade Runner. I think we decoded pretty much all the Blade Runner films, so hopefully you can do a channel search, and yeah. Beautiful people in California, bad government. Absolutely. Yep. Well, people, yeah. But slowly, the liberal ideology is taking over a lot of these states. That's the problem. It's not that people are bad. They just get tricked into thinking a certain way. They get tricked into the right-left paradigm. Thank you, Elizabeth. Yeah, we can't let them railroad us, stripping our freedoms. Remember how all this started with the gas stoves, and it was slowly, right? We just talked about this last week. I was like, you guys, they're going to raise natural gas prices by 20%. And this is when I started warning you guys. I was like, it's coming. They first start by de-incentivizing you by raising the prices on it. Then they ban it after they get enough people to drop the energy source. We can't let this happen. Can't. If Musk publicly supports a mass protest, better question it. Yes, because you can almost bet there are going to be provocateurs behind that. That guy's not on our side. Yes, wood stove is my only form of heat in my house, and I have a gas cooking stove, says Flossie from Vermont. Now, Vermont was one of the states that sued, saying that they hadn't done enough, that they needed to go above and beyond. So I wonder what kind of rules they have in Vermont. Now, some of you are just going to do what you want, and that's good, but the problem is eventually this is all going to be enforced on a very high level. They'll be doing house to house, and they will have paid people to do this. You pay someone 6 figures to go and raid people's homes for building a fire, and you'll get people standing in line for that job. It's really sad how people sell out against their, and they'll probably be liberals, climate people, thinking they're saving the planet by shutting down your fireplace. So, thanks, True. Mr. Case, have you done the 6th Day movie? I have not, but I will take a look at that. The 6th Day. Thanks, True. That's my nephew's name. Brother's son's name is True. That's cool. The 6th Day. Maybe we did look at that. Let me write it down. The 6th Day. Try to look at that for you. California is mentally brainwashed when Gus is one of them. Hey guys, it's not the government that we're going to have to protect ourselves from when all this goes down. It's going to be the brainwashed people. Think about how it's going to go down in the last days. I always think about this. The Bible talks about, before they hated me, before they hated you, they hated me. Jesus said this, right? And in the book of Revelation, it says plagues will come upon the earth. But the people that are sealed will not be affected by the plagues. But then that will enrage the people that are suffering the plagues, and they will begin to come after us. Well, I always think about how this scenario is going to go down in the last days. And it's essentially going to be jealous people. It's going to be people that have been radicalized by the programming to think that we are at fault because we didn't get our booster seat. Thanks, Kate in Orlando. Thank you. Or because we didn't do certain things to go along with the agenda, and they're going to blame us for the global catastrophes. They're going to say it's because you didn't buy into climate change. You're still building a fire. And they're going to be so brainwashed that they're going to zombie out on us. They're going to hate us with a passion. Understand that during this time, it won't last too long. Our troubles will not be too long before Jesus returns. And always remember, that your crown is in heaven. And it doesn't matter what we go through right now. We have to stop holding on to this life so much and stop being in fear of what is going to happen to us in this life, and always keep our eyes on the next life, heaven. Keep your eyes fixed on heaven. Because if you have your eyes fixed on this earth, the devil will deceive you and get you to give in, to get along, won't he? And that's why it's so important right now, before things get really hard, to stand up for this stuff. Stand up for your right to eat a hamburger. And reject this notion that a cow farting is somehow going to end the world. I mean, this is ridiculous. And every single conservative politician should be saying this exact same thing, instead of being hung up on all of the time wasters. And I hope the urgency of this is coming through to you guys, holding these people accountable. We have to. You should write a list of the top 5 things you're going to keep in your mind. Stick it on your refrigerator. I will not allow my conservative politicians to go another session without taking a stand against people trying to shut down my ability to have a gas stove, a wood-burning stove, and eat beef without getting shamed. And that should be at the top of your list. Guns too, yes. But they haven't found a really good way to go through and sweepingly take all your guns yet. They haven't found a good way to do that. So that's kind of like a little bit lower on the priority list. But these are basic human rights. One day you're going to go to the supermarket, there's not going to be any beef. And you're going to be like, dang, I should have listened to Casey. Dang, I should have held my conservative politician responsible for this. I should have told him to put a stop to this. We're not going along with this agenda. We're not believing this. We're not going to allow our laws in our country to allow this to happen. And you're going to look back. You're going to look back when your gas stove is gone and you're stuck in an electric stove and your electric bill goes up to $300 a month and you got to basically eat your beans cold because you can't turn on your electric stove because it costs too much. You're going to look back and go, man, look at all that wood on my property that I can't burn. Casey tried to warn us, but we didn't hold our conservative politicians accountable. We didn't hold our governors accountable. We let our conservative governor take away our right based on some federal climate agenda. Unbelievable. We didn't hold our Congress when they had power. We didn't hold them responsible and tell them that we're not going to stand for this. Okay? So, I love you guys. Please share this video. If you do nothing else today, share this video so that people can understand the urgency of what's going on and snap out of it. I love each and every one of you. I'll see you tomorrow. Take care and be safe, you guys.